Without further ado, I'd now like to invite the Secretary General of the Pacific Islands Forum Secretariat, Dame Meg Taylor, to come and give an introductory statement.
Good evening, and a very warm welcome to Your Excellency, the Director General of the WTO, Roberta Azevedo. May I also acknowledge the Vice Chancellor of the University, Professor Derek Armstrong, and distinguished guests. And let me join your Deputy Vice Chancellor in welcoming our guest who's travelled many miles to be with us, a native of Brazil, who keeps telling me that this distance to the Pacific is longer than going home to Brazil from Geneva. But I want to say thank you to the University for giving me the opportunity to say a few words on the history of regional trade this evening. Let me take you back to the establishment of the South Pacific Bureau for Economic Cooperation, today known as the Pacific Island Forum Secretariat. Founded in 1971, SPEC was established to facilitate continuing cooperation, consultation between members on trade, economic development, transport, tourism, and other related matters. From its foundation, the Pacific Island Forum has long recognized the benefit of working together and the advantages of closer cooperation and coordination. Pacific leaders have committed to harnessing our collective strength to work together to address our common challenges. With this in mind, Forum leaders in 2017 reaffirmed the framework for Pacific regionalism as their platform for renewed commitment to collective action. In addition, leaders also recognized the Blue Pacific identity as the core driver for regional and collective action. Since the inception of the Pacific Islands Forum, regional trade has been an area where we have been able to demonstrate an ability to work together as one Pacific. In the 1970s and 1980s, we sought to establish the foundations for intra-regional trade, as well as trade with the world. And so it was during this period that we entered into foundational agreements such as the South Pacific Regional Trade and Economic Cooperation Agreement. Some of you may remember Spartica, an agreement amongst Forum members through which Australia and New Zealand provided duty-free entry on imports originating from the Forum Island countries. And the Lome Convention between the European Union and the ACP states, the Africa, Caribbean, Pacific states, offering duty-free or concessional duties on selected Pacific exports. As we know, the 1990s saw rapid advances in globalization, coupled with progress in ICT, laid the foundation for an increasingly liberalized world economy. The entry into force of the World Trade Organization agreements in 1995 saw the reduction of trade barriers in goods, services, and investment, and led to significant increases in global trade. In the Pacific, the trade agenda during this time focused on regional economic integration and increasing our linkages with the global economy. During this period, we sought to engage in multilateral processes with a view to ensuring that our regional interests were taken on board in global negotiations. As we entered the new millennium, Pacific Island countries concluded the Pacific Islands Country Trade Agreement, PICTA, a free trade agreement amongst the 14 Forum Island countries which would assist their gradual integration into global trade, and successfully for several of our member states trading actively under this arrangement, Fiji and Samoa in particular. Trade relations and negotiations between the Pacific and the European Union then dominated a significant portion of the first decade of the 2000s, with the negotiation of the Pacific EU Economic Partnership Agreement. The Pacific ACP states concluded the negotiations of their interim EPA in 2007. These were the most challenging and prolonged trade negotiations undertaken by the Pacific region to date. And negotiations on a comprehensive EPA were suspended in 2016. As a result, the interim EPA agreement remains the only legally binding trade agreement between the Pacific and the European Union that interested Pacific states may accede to. To date, Papua New Guinea, Fiji, Samoa have signed on as parties to the interim EPA. Alongside the EPA negotiations, Forum Island countries have also negotiated the PACER Plus arrangements with Australia and New Zealand, which was launched in 2009. While PACER Plus is another example of the region's collective effort to work towards greater economic integration, the agreement also demonstrates the profound political nature of trade. The agreement, as concluded, is now for members' own considerations with regards to ratification. Trade is a globalizing agenda based on the principles of interdependency. On the multilateral front, the WTO has progressed a more liberalized trade environment. In recognition of this process, our leaders agreed to establish a regional representative office in Geneva to enable the Pacific Island countries to have a voice in the WTO to defend their trade interests. And with us, we have our ambassador to the WTO here with us this afternoon, Ambassador Falameka. Since the establishment of the WTO in 1995, 6 Pacific Island countries have become full members, namely Fiji, Papua New Guinea, Samoa, Solomon Islands, Tonga, and Vanuatu. As a region, we know we can achieve more if we work together, a principle which leaders have reaffirmed in endorsing the framework for Pacific regionalism. And throughout history, the Pacific Islands Forum has long understood the importance of having arrangements in place that would ensure that as a region we can engage in trade, whether within our own region or with the world, in ways that benefit our membership and our people. And why shouldn't we? After all, we lay claim to much for which the world desires, above, within and below our great Pacific Ocean. And so the onus is on us to support the leaders of the Pacific Island Forum to leverage these resources as the basis for negotiations regarding global trade and economic integration. On that note, let me again offer you a warm welcome to the Pacific and look forward to hearing the perspectives of the WTO. Vinaka.